For decades, Pastor Bob Joyce has been at the center of one of music's biggest mysteries. Whispers and theories filled the internet, claiming he might actually be Elvis Presley in disguise. But he decided to end it all with one simple test. What he discovered shocked the entire world and left fans speechless. The truth was finally revealed, and nobody expected what came next. This is the story that changed everything. Pastor Bob Joyce lived a quiet life in Inkster, Michigan. He was a pastor at a local church. He helped people in his community every day. But something strange followed him everywhere he went. People stared at him on the street. They whispered when he walked by.
Why?
Because he looked like someone famous. That someone was Elvis Presley. Elvis was the king of rock and roll. He died in 1977. Fans loved him all over the world. His music changed everything. People still listen to his songs decades later. But something made people wonder. What if Elvis didn't really die? What if he faked his death? What if he became a pastor? Pastor Bob Joyce had the same face as young Elvis. He had the same eyes. He had the same smile. He had black hair just like Elvis. When people saw him, they couldn't believe it. TikTok videos went viral. Millions of people watched them. Everyone asked the same question, is this really Elvis? The theory grew bigger and bigger. Websites wrote about it. YouTube channels made videos about it. People debated it online. Some people were serious. Some people were joking. But the question stayed the same. Was Pastor Bob really Elvis? How could anyone know for sure? Pastor Bob didn't like all the attention. He wanted to live a normal life. He wanted to help people at church. He didn't want to be famous. But the internet doesn't forget. The rumors kept growing. Finally, he decided to do something big. He would take a DNA test. This test would show the truth. No more guessing. No more wondering. Just the facts. The Elvis theory didn't start by accident. There were real reasons why people believed it. First, there was the physical resemblance. Pastor Bob Joyce looked incredibly similar to young Elvis Presley. The face shape was the same. The eyes were identical. The cheekbones matched perfectly. Even his smile looked like Elvis's famous smile. When you put photos side by side, it was shocking. People couldn't ignore what they saw. Elvis died on August 16, 1977. He was only 42 years old. The official cause was heart failure. But many people didn't believe this story. They thought it was suspicious. Why would the king of rock and roll just die like that? Some people believed he faked his own death. They thought he wanted to escape fame. He wanted a normal life. He wanted privacy. So what better way than to disappear and start over? People pointed to strange details. Elvis's body was never shown to the public. There was no open casket funeral. His autopsy results were kept secret for years. These facts made people wonder. What were they hiding? What didn't they want us to know? The mystery grew bigger with time. Then Pastor Bob Joyce appeared in the public eye. When people saw him, they made the connection immediately. Could this be Elvis? Could he have become a pastor? It made a strange kind of sense. Elvis was spiritual. He believed in God. Maybe he wanted to serve God in a new way. Maybe he wanted to help people instead of performing. Social media made everything spread faster. TikTok videos went viral overnight. Millions of people watched them. They shared them with friends and family. Everyone had an opinion. The theory became bigger than anyone expected. It became a worldwide phenomenon. News outlets picked it up. Mainstream media talked about it. Even famous people commented on it. Some believers were very serious. They created websites with evidence. They made long videos explaining their theory. They studied Elvis's life carefully. They looked for connections. They found what they wanted to find. Other people were just having fun with the idea. They made memes and jokes. But serious or not, everyone was asking the same question. Pastor Bob Joyce never claimed to be Elvis. He always said he was just a pastor. But the more he denied it, the more people wondered. Why was he denying it so much? Was he protecting a secret? The theory fed itself. Every detail became important. Every coincidence became evidence. The internet had found its mystery, and nobody wanted to let it go. Pastor Bob Joyce finally made a decision. He was tired of the rumors. He was tired of the questions. He was tired of people staring at him. He wanted to end this once and for all. There was only one way to do it. He would take a DNA test. This test would give him real answers. Science doesn't lie. DNA doesn't lie. The truth would come out. DNA tests are very accurate today. They can tell you almost anything about your genetics. They can find your family members. They can show where your ancestors came from. They can compare your DNA to other people's DNA. If Pastor Bob was really Elvis, the test would show it. If he wasn't, the test would prove it. There was no way to hide the truth. Pastor Bob chose a famous DNA company. He wanted to make sure the test was legitimate. He wanted millions of people to believe the results. He didn't want anyone saying the test was fake. So he picked a well-known company. A company that people trusted. A company with a good reputation. This was important to him. The process was simple. Pastor Bob gave a DNA sample. Usually it's saliva. You spit into a small tube. That's all it takes. Your DNA is in your saliva. The scientists can extract it easily. Then they send it to the lab. The lab tests it. They compare it to other DNA samples. They look for matches. They look for family connections. Millions of people waited for the results. The internet was buzzing with excitement. Online forums discussed what might happen. Social media was full of theories. Some people thought the test would confirm everything. They were convinced Pastor Bob was Elvis. They believed the truth was finally coming. Other people were skeptical. They thought it was impossible. They thought the resemblance was just a coincidence. News outlets prepared their stories. Journalists got ready to report the results. Everyone knew this was a big moment. Whether Pastor Bob was Elvis or not, people cared. The mystery had captured the world's attention. Elvis fans waited nervously. They wanted answers. They wanted to know the truth about their idol. Conspiracy theorists waited too. If the test showed Pastor Bob was Elvis, it would change everything. It would prove that Elvis was alive. It would prove that the government covered it up. The days turned into weeks. The lab worked carefully. They had to be absolutely sure. They tested the DNA multiple times. They checked their work. They verified everything. This wasn't just any test. This was the most important DNA test in modern history. The whole world was watching. The results would either confirm the wildest theory ever or end it completely. Pastor Bob waited patiently. He had faith in science. He knew the truth would come out. Soon, everyone would know. The mystery would finally be solved. No more guessing. No more wondering. Just the facts. Just the real answer. He was ready for whatever came next. The DNA results came back from the lab. Scientists and experts studied them carefully. This was serious business. They couldn't make mistakes. They had to be completely accurate. The whole world was waiting. Experts looked at every detail. They examined the genetic markers. They checked family connections. They compared the DNA to databases. DNA experts explained what they found. Pastor Bob's DNA showed his real family history. It showed where his ancestors came from. It showed his ethnic background. It showed his genetic connections to real family members. Scientists could trace his lineage back many generations. They found his relatives. They found his family tree. Everything pointed to one clear answer. The experts were very clear about their findings. They said the science was definitive. There was no room for doubt. The DNA test proved Pastor Bob's real identity. It proved his real family connections. It proved his real background. Scientists don't argue about DNA. It's facts. It's biology. It's unchangeable. Geneticists explained the details to the public. They used simple language. They wanted everyone to understand. DNA is like a code. It's unique to every person. No two people have the same DNA. Well, except identical twins. But everyone else is different. Pastor Bob's DNA was completely different from Elvis Presley's DNA. This was scientifically proven. The experts also discussed what this meant. If Pastor Bob had been Elvis, the DNA would have shown it. The test would have found connections to Elvis's family. It would have found matching genetic markers. It would have shown his DNA was similar to Elvis's DNA. But that didn't happen. The DNA showed something completely different. Scientists looked at family records too. They compared Pastor Bob's DNA results to known relatives. They found matches with his actual family members. These were real people, real relatives, real connections. The family tree was clear. It was documented. It was scientific proof. Pastor Bob came from a specific family. That family had nothing to do with Elvis Presley's family. Experts also discussed the physical resemblance. They explained that similar faces happen sometimes. People can look alike without being related. It's called coincidence. Millions of people exist in the world. Some of them look similar to other people. That's just how genetics works. Similar features can appear in different families. It doesn't mean the people are related. The scientists were confident in their work. They had tested everything thoroughly. They had checked and rechecked their results. They had compared the data multiple times. They knew their science was right. The DNA evidence was clear. The facts were undeniable. Now everyone had to accept the truth. The mystery was solved. The science had spoken. The DNA test results were finally released to the public. Everyone watched as the truth came out. The results showed exactly what the experts had said. Pastor Bob Joyce was not Elvis Presley. The science was clear. The DNA was definitive. There was no Elvis connection at all. The mystery was over. The theory was false. Pastor Bob's DNA showed his true identity. His real family name was in the results. His real ancestry was revealed. His real family tree was displayed. He came from a completely different family than Elvis. His genetic markers matched his actual relatives. His DNA profile was unique to his own family line. Scientists confirmed everything. The results were 100% accurate. Elvis Presley's DNA would have shown different markers. His family line was well documented. His relatives were known. His ancestry was recorded. If Pastor Bob had been Elvis, the DNA would have matched. But it didn't match at all. The results showed two completely different people. Two different families. Two different genetic histories. The world had to accept the reality. The viral theory was wrong. The internet had created a false belief. Millions of people had believed something that wasn't true. Now they had to face the facts. Science had proven the truth. DNA doesn't lie. The results were impossible to deny. Some people felt disappointed. They had wanted the theory to be real. They had imagined Elvis living secretly as a pastor. It made a good story. It was exciting and mysterious. But now the mystery was solved. Now they knew the real answer. Reality wasn't as exciting as the theory. But it was the truth. Other people felt relieved. They said they always knew it wasn't real. They said the resemblance was just a coincidence. They said people were being silly. Now they felt vindicated. The science proved them right. They had been skeptical all along. They had doubted the theory. Now everyone else had to admit they were wrong. News outlets reported the results worldwide. Major media outlets covered the story. The headlines were clear: Pastor Bob Joyce is not Elvis. DNA test ends Elvis theory. Science solves internet mystery. The story was everywhere. Everyone heard about it. The whole world knew the truth now. Pastor Bob felt relief. He finally had proof. He could show people the DNA results. He could prove who he really was. He didn't have to deny the theory anymore. He had science on his side. The results were official. The results were undeniable. Now people would have to accept reality. Now people would have to stop asking him if he was Elvis. Pastor Bob Joyce finally spoke about the results. He gave interviews. He talked to reporters. He shared his feelings with the world. He was honest about everything. He explained what it was like to be caught in this mystery. He talked about the attention. He talked about the confusion. He talked about wanting his normal life back. Pastor Bob said he understood why people believed the theory. He wasn't angry at anyone. He knew it was just the internet having fun. He knew people were curious. He knew Elvis was a big part of history. He knew people loved mysteries. So he didn't blame anyone for wondering. He just wanted people to understand the truth now. He explained his real life. He talked about his family. He talked about his actual relatives. He talked about his real background. He talked about growing up. He talked about his childhood. He talked about how he became a pastor. He shared his real story. He wanted people to know who he really was. Not who they imagined him to be, but who he actually was. Pastor Bob said the DNA test was the right decision. He said it was important to settle the question. He said science was the best way to find the truth. He was glad to have real proof. He was glad to have definitive answers. Now nobody could argue about it anymore. Now everyone had to accept what the science showed. He talked about the internet and social media. He said it was powerful and strange. He said it could spread ideas very quickly. He said sometimes those ideas weren't true. He said people should be careful about what they believe online. He said they should check facts. He said they should trust science. He said they should think critically. Pastor Bob also talked about Elvis. He had respect for Elvis. He understood why Elvis was important. He understood why people loved his music. He understood why people were curious about his life. He said Elvis was truly the king of rock and roll. He said his music would live forever. He said Elvis deserved to be remembered for his real accomplishments. He thanked everyone who had supported him. He thanked people who had been kind. He thanked people who had believed him. He thanked the DNA company for doing accurate testing. He thanked the scientists for their hard work. He thanked the reporters who told the story fairly. He appreciated everyone who had helped him get the truth out. Pastor Bob said he wanted to move forward now. He wanted to focus on his church. He wanted to help his community. He wanted to do his work as a pastor. He wanted his life to return to normal. He hoped people would respect his privacy now. He hoped people would understand that he was just a regular person. He just wanted to live his life peacefully and help others. The world reacted to the DNA results in many different ways. Elvis fans had different opinions. Some fans accepted the science immediately. They understood that DNA doesn't lie. They understood that the theory was just internet fun. They moved on quickly. They went back to enjoying Elvis's music. They weren't disappointed. They knew Elvis was still the king of rock and roll. Other Elvis fans were more upset. They had believed the theory. They had hoped it was true. They had imagined Elvis was still alive. Now they felt let down. They felt disappointed. They had to accept that Elvis really did die in 1977. They had to accept that he wasn't living as a pastor. It was hard for them. They needed time to adjust to the reality. Some people on social media refused to accept the results. They said the test was fake. They said the scientists were lying. They said the government was hiding the truth. They created new theories. They said the DNA test was part of a cover-up. They believed Elvis was still alive. They believed Pastor Bob was still Elvis. No science could change their minds. They were conspiracy theorists. They would always believe their theory. But most people accepted the truth. Most people understood the science. Most people moved on. They realized it was a fun internet mystery while it lasted. They appreciated that the truth finally came out. They were satisfied with the answer. They could stop wondering now. They could stop debating. They had their answer. Case closed. Young people on TikTok made new videos. Some videos were funny. Some videos were serious. Some videos admitted they were wrong. Some videos joked about believing the theory. The videos went viral. Millions of people watched them. People commented and shared their own reactions. The internet talked about it for days and days. News websites published articles about the reaction. They interviewed fans. They gathered comments from social media. They showed how people felt. Some articles were funny. Some articles were serious. Some articles talked about internet culture. Some articles talked about how easy it is to believe false theories. All the articles showed that people cared about this mystery. Traditional media also reported on the reaction. Television stations showed interviews with people. Radio stations discussed the story. Magazines wrote articles. Newspapers published the news. Everyone was talking about it. The story was everywhere. It was the biggest internet mystery in a long time. Now it was solved. People had to accept the answer. Pastor Bob's church also reacted. His congregation supported him completely. They were proud of him. They supported his decision to take the DNA test. They thought he did the right thing. They appreciated his honesty and openness. They helped him through the attention. They protected his privacy. They made sure he could still do his work as a pastor. His church family stood by him. This story teaches us something very important. It teaches us about believing things on the internet. It teaches us about checking facts. It teaches us about trusting science. It teaches us about how quickly false information spreads. The Pastor Bob Joyce mystery was exciting. It was fun. But it was also a lesson for everyone. The internet is powerful. It can make ideas spread incredibly fast. Millions of people can see something in just hours. Before anyone checks if it's true, millions already believe it. This happened with the Elvis theory. It spread everywhere. People shared videos. People made memes. People wrote articles. Everyone was talking about it. But nobody really knew if it was true. Social media makes it easy to believe things. When you see lots of people talking about something, you think it must be true. You think other people have checked the facts. You think someone would have stopped the false information. But that doesn't always happen. False information spreads just as fast as true information. Sometimes faster. We need to be more careful about what we believe. We should ask questions. We should check sources. We should look for scientific evidence. We should trust experts. We should not just believe something because it's popular. We should not just believe something because many people are talking about it. We should think critically. We should use our brains. The DNA test was the right solution. It used science. Science is reliable. Science is testable. Science can be checked and verified. When you have a question about facts, science is the best answer. DNA testing is one of the most accurate tests ever created. It can tell you the truth about identity. It can solve mysteries. It can prove facts. This story also teaches us about respecting people. Pastor Bob Joyce was just a regular person. He didn't ask to be famous. He didn't ask for all this attention. He just wanted to live his life and help his community. But the internet turned him into a celebrity. People stared at him. People asked him questions. People treated him differently. This shows us that we need to be kind to regular people. We need to respect their privacy. We need to remember they are real human beings. We learned that coincidences happen. People can look similar without being related. Pastor Bob looked like young Elvis, but that didn't mean anything. Similar features appear in many people. This is just how genetics works. We shouldn't jump to crazy conclusions just because something looks similar. We should think logically. We should use evidence. The mystery of Pastor Bob Joyce is now solved. But the lesson remains. We should be smarter about what we believe. We should check facts. We should trust science. We should be kind to people. We should think before we believe. We should remember that not everything on the internet is true. We should use our intelligence. We should ask questions. We should always seek the truth. Elvis will always be the king of rock and roll. His music will live forever. His legacy will never die. But he did pass away in 1977. That is the truth. Pastor Bob Joyce is a good man and a good pastor. He deserves to live his life in peace. That is also the truth. The truth matters. Science matters. Facts matter. Remember that the next time you see something viral on the internet,